on the same day that a military drone with a high explosive warhead struck the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine. The so-called U.S. leadership is having a disastrous moment on the global stage. Symbolic much? Defense Secretary and former Fox Weekend host Pete Hegseth and Vice President J.D. Vance are in Europe this week amid rising tensions with our allies. NATO is currently in disarray after Hegseth announced that our security priorities lie elsewhere and has already been forced to walk back comments he made just a day before that, indicating that Ukraine should abandon all hope of regaining all of its territory back from Russia. Senator Roger Wicker, Republican of Mississippi and the chairman of the panel that oversees the Pentagon, criticized Hegseth for his remarks, calling it a rookie mistake, and told Politico, quote, "I don't know who wrote the speech. It is the kind of thing Tucker Carlson could have written, and Carlson is a fool." The youth have spoken too. Dozens of middle school students on a U.S. military base in Germany walked out of class in protest of Hegseth's dismantling of DEI policies. J.D. Vance is also stumbling out of the gate by berating our allies in a bizarre speech to European leaders that attempted to export his MAGA message and make Europe great again.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within. If you're running in fear of your own voters, there is nothing America can do for you. Nor, for that matter, is there anything that you can do for the American people who elected me and elected President Trump.
Vance's remarks at the Munich Security Conference were met with shock and later condemnation by the EU and Germany, while drawing praise from, I think you can guess who, Russian state television. Joining me now is Ed Luce, U.S. chief columnist for the Financial Times. Ed, it's good to see you. Just a few more highlights from just J.D. Vance's time abroad. He has railed against excessive AI regulation, essentially said that people need to stop worrying so much about disinformation, told Europeans to stop shunning parties that are deemed extreme, like the far-right party in Germany that's got Nazi roots. He met with German far-right leader Alice Weidel at the Munich conference. And this is the person from AfD, the group that Elon Musk has also promoted. Viktor Orban could not have done better. How's this going down among our allies?
Very badly, and I expect that's intentional. The speech that he gave was met with stony silence. My colleagues were there, and they echoed other people's reports from it. They were expecting, this is an annual security conference where the Ukraine-Russia issue is on everybody's minds, and they were expecting the vice president to talk about that. He mentioned Ukraine a couple of times in passing. The purpose of his speech, as you've already outlined, was to say that the real threat to Europe came from within and came from his audience there in Munich. It came from liberal democracies, including Germany, which faces a general election 10 days from now, where Vance is, and Elon Musk, of course, are openly backing the far right, the Nazi-adjacent party. So this is just not in anybody's playbook for an American vice president to come over and do this. And moreover, to cite examples from different democracies, Germany, Sweden, and UK, 3 examples he used of where he alleged Europe was suppressing free speech and depriving people of their liberty. Now, these are countries with 1/5 or less the incarceration rate of America. So it's a very odd thing at a security conference for an American vice president to be lecturing people on taking away their own citizens' liberty. It's just surreal, beyond anything that people were expecting.
Yeah, and I'll note that one of the ways in which he claims liberties are being violated is that they're not allowing people to harass abortion clinics. And therefore, he says that's also a violation of free speech, among other things. And he also, there's very quickly, to stay with Vance for a moment, he also seemed to imply for a moment that U.S. troop presence in Ukraine was on the table and then took it back and then said the Wall Street Journal twisted his words. Was that ever clarified? Are we threatening troops or no?
I don't think so. I mean, Vance, very well known to Russia and to the Europeans, has been the leading advocate in the Trump world of cutting and running from Ukraine and pivoting to Asia, to China. But the whole sort of Pete Hegseth kerfuffle of him basically making all the concessions to Putin before there are any talks with Russia, I think he wasn't guilty of being wrong or saying something that Trump doesn't believe. He was guilty of saying it too early. This is very clearly what Trump plans for the negotiating sessions with the Russians and with Putin directly, something he craves. And that's the other backdrop, really, to this Munich conference, which is Trump's 90-minute call with Putin, lifting the embargo on Russia, lifting its diplomatic isolation, saying he's going to get it back into the G7, make it the G8 again. They are very happy in Moscow, and you should see, I'm sure you have, Joy, the clips from Russian TV. They are seeing this as a victory.
Indeed. I mean, and Hegseth, you know, to add to an embarrassment, he took a far-right conspiracy theorist, Jack Posobiec, along with him. He was protested by U.S. military families. That never happens. He seems to have been quite the disaster. But to your point, the Neville Chamberlain vibes are certainly surrounding not just these two who beclowned themselves a bit on the world stage, but really Donald Trump.
Yes, I mean, Munich is a very, unfortunately, I mean, ominously apt historic venue for this kind of message. I am encouraged and to some degree surprised by the pushback we're now beginning to see from European leaders. Keir Starmer mentioned, Britain's Prime Minister mentioned that no negotiation should take place without the Ukrainians being at the table, that Ukraine should eventually become a member of NATO, and UK also imposed sanctions on additional members of Putin's circle today. Boris Pistorius, Germany's defense minister, said Vance's speech was unacceptable, highly strong language for a German to come out with. And Kaja Kallas, the European counterpart to Marco Rubio, used the word appeasement. So talk of Munich and appeasement.
NATO may be something out that we are not a part of at any time soon. So sadly, but at least they are holding together without us. Ed Luce, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.